Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Books and Bytes.
Yeah.
Today, we're diving deep into Philip K. Dick's
Oh, yeah.
Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
Absolutely.
A book that's not just a sci-fi classic, but a deep dive into what it means to be human in a world increasingly blurred by technology.
I think it's a book that stays with you,
Yeah.
It really makes you question your own reality and the very essence of empathy.
Okay, so before we get lost in the philosophical weeds, can
Yeah.
you give us a quick overview? Like, what's the core story here? And what big themes are we going to unpack?
So, imagine a post-apocalyptic Earth, ravaged by nuclear war where real animals are a luxury, and most people have emigrated to off-world colonies. Enter Rick Deckard, a bounty hunter tasked with retiring rogue androids who are nearly indistinguishable from humans. The book follows Deckard as he grapples with the ethics of his job and the blurring lines between human and artificial. We'll be exploring themes of empathy, what defines humanity, and the implications of technology so advanced it challenges the very soul.
Wow. Okay, that's quite a setup. Let's dive right in, starting at the beginning. We meet Rick Deckard, and he's not exactly living the high life, is he?
No, not at all. He's got this electric sheep on his roof, a poor substitute for a real animal, which are status symbols in this world. It really sets the stage for this yearning for authenticity, for something real in a world dominated by the artificial.
And that yearning drives so much of the story, doesn't it? This desire for something real.
Absolutely, it's everywhere. From the obsession with owning real animals to the emergence of mercerism, this virtual reality religion that offers a shared experience of empathy and suffering.
Right, mercerism. It's
Yeah.
like this lifeline in a world that feels so fragmented and emotionally barren.
Exactly. And it plays a crucial role in the story, especially for Deckard, who struggles to connect with it, further highlighting his own sense of isolation in his search for meaning.
So Deckard gets this assignment to retire 6 Nexus 6 androids, the most advanced model yet. What makes these androids so different, so dangerous?
Well, they're incredibly intelligent and sophisticated, almost indistinguishable from humans. They even have memories and emotions, or at least they can convincingly simulate them. This raises all sorts of questions about what truly separates humans from machines.
And that question is at the heart of the book, isn't it? What does make us human? Is it empathy, as the Voight-Kampf test suggests?
That's the big question Dick forces us to confront. The Voight-Kampf test measures empathy as a way to distinguish androids from humans. But the lines get blurry when an android shows signs of empathy, like Rachel Rosen does.
Rachel Rosen,
Yeah.
the bombshell who throws Deckard's whole world into a tailspin. I mean, he goes to test these new androids at the Rosen Association, thinking it'll be routine, and then bam, this woman, an android, nearly passes the empathy test.
Yeah, it's a pivotal moment. It
Yeah.
makes Deckard question the validity of the test and the nature of empathy itself. If an android can exhibit empathy, does that make it human? Or is it just a sophisticated imitation?
It really messes with your head, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if we can't even tell the difference, what does that say about us?
That's the brilliance of Dick's writing. He doesn't give us easy answers. He throws these questions out there and lets them linger, challenging our preconceived notions about humanity and technology.
And this encounter with Rachel sets the stage for the rest of the book, doesn't it? It sends Deckard on this emotional roller coaster as he hunts down the escaped androids, while wrestling with his own doubts and growing empathy for them.
It does. Each encounter he has, each android he retires, chips away at his certainty, forcing him to confront the moral ambiguity of his actions.
Speaking of which, let's talk about some of those key encounters. Deckard's pursuit of these rogue androids is full of twists and turns, right? Each one revealing something new about him and the world he inhabits.
Definitely. One of the most chilling encounters is with Max Polikoff, an android so cunning he disguises himself as a police officer to lure Deckard into a trap. It highlights the danger these androids represent and how easily they can blend in.
And then there's Luba Luft, the opera singer. This scene is just heartbreaking.
It is. Luba, aware of her fate, finds solace in art, in the beauty of music. She even challenges Deckard's humanity, accusing him of being a sadist. It's a powerful scene that exposes the emotional vulnerability beneath Deckard's tough exterior.
It makes you question who's really the victim here, doesn't it?
Exactly. And this moral ambiguity is amplified when we meet Phil Resch, another bounty hunter. He's ruthless and efficient, almost robotic himself. But even he gets caught in the web of uncertainty.
Right. This is where we get that mind-blowing twist where Resch insists on testing Deckard. And then it turns out that both Resch and Inspector Garland, Deckard's superior, are androids themselves.
That's one of those whoa moments that makes you question everything you thought you knew. It further blurs the line between human and android and sets the stage for the final act of the book, where Deckard confronts the remaining androids in a dilapidated apartment building.
And this is where we meet J.R. Isidore the Special, who forms this strange bond with the androids, right?
Yes. Isidore, a human ostracized because of his diminished mental capacity, represents another facet of this post-apocalyptic society. He's lonely and isolated, and his compassion for the androids, even as they manipulate him, speaks volumes about the human need for connection regardless of the form it takes.
His kindness, in contrast to the android's cold logic, really drives home the theme of empathy, doesn't it?
It does, and it's further emphasized by Roy Beatty's failed attempt to experience mercerism. This scene where he tries to tap into this collective empathy but feels nothing is so poignant and revealing.
It shows how deeply these androids crave validation, connection, and perhaps even a soul.
Exactly. It's this yearning that ultimately leads to the tragic confrontation with Deckard, which we'll delve into in part 2 of our deep dive.
Okay, this is a great place to pause. We set the stage. Explore these powerful themes of empathy, humanity, and the blurring lines between the real and artificial. When we return in part 2, we'll delve into Deckard's final confrontation and the book's thought-provoking ending.
So we left off with Deckard heading into this dilapidated apartment building, knowing those rogue androids are inside. And he's already on shaky ground, questioning everything after those earlier encounters.
Yeah, he's not the same confident bounty hunter we met at the beginning, that's for sure.
Yeah.
The line between hunter and hunted feels very blurry now.
It is, and the setting itself adds to that. The decaying building, filled with broken-down androids and this strange, lonely human Isidore. It's all symbolic of this crumbling world, both physically and morally.
And this is where the action really ramps up, right? Those final confrontations are brutal, both physically and emotionally.
They are. Deckard, even with his growing empathy for the androids, still has a job to do.
Yeah.
It's this conflict, this tension between his duty and his evolving understanding of what it means to be human that makes these scenes so compelling.
One of the things that struck me was how the androids, in their desperation to survive, become almost mirror images of the humans they're trying to emulate. They scheme, they manipulate, they even try to exploit Isidore's kindness.
It's a fascinating paradox, isn't it? The more they try to mimic human behavior, the more their actions seem to highlight what makes us different. Their lack of empathy, their cold calculation. It's ultimately what separates them from true humanity.
And Roy Batty, the leader of the group, embodies that struggle so powerfully. His failed attempt to experience mercerism, to feel something, anything, is just heartbreaking.
That scene where he enters the empathy box and desperately tries to connect with Mercer only to feel emptiness is one of the most profound in the book. It speaks to this fundamental human need for connection, for something beyond ourselves.
Even if it's through suffering, right? Mercerism is all about shared pain, shared empathy.
Exactly. It's a way to transcend individual isolation and experience something larger than oneself. And Batty, in his android form, is shut out of that experience. It fuels his anger, his resentment towards humanity.
And ultimately, it leads to his violent actions. He lashes out trying to prove his own strength, his own right to exist.
It's a tragic cycle, isn't it? His very attempt to validate his existence only reinforces his otherness, his separation from true human experience.
And this all culminates in those final devastating confrontations with Deckard. He retires Roy and Irmgard Beatty, but it's not a clean victory.
No, it's brutal, messy, and emotionally draining. Deckard is left shattered, questioning everything he thought he knew. He's completed his mission, but at what cost?
And then just when you think it's over, we have that strange encounter with the other, Rachel Rosen.
That's where things get really mind-bending. Deckard, already reeling from his experience with the baddies, is confronted with this perfect replica of Rachel, the android who had already stirred up so much confusion and doubt within him.
It's like a ghost, a reminder of his own inability to distinguish between the real and artificial.
It is. It shakes him to his core and forces him to confront the possibility that everything he's experiencing might be an illusion, a carefully constructed facade.
And it's here that Mercer appears again, offering Deckard some cryptic guidance.
Mercer, this enigmatic figure who embodies empathy and suffering, tells Deckard he has to do what he has to do even if it feels wrong. It's a chilling message, reinforcing the idea that morality is often a matter of perspective, and that sometimes doing the right thing requires making difficult, even seemingly cruel choices.
So Deckard retires this other Rachel, knowing full well that she's not the original, the one he developed this strange connection with. It's a pivotal moment that shows how far he's come, how jaded and disillusioned he's become.
It does. It's a victory, but a hollow one. He's carrying out his duty, but there's no sense of satisfaction, only exhaustion and a profound sense of loss.
And then in a moment of what seems like hope, he finds the spider, This tiny, delicate creature, a symbol of life amidst the ruins. It feels like a turning point, a chance for redemption.
Yes. And it's so beautifully described in the book. He had never thought of himself as cruel, but now he wondered, how could he have left the spider to its fate? It was so small, so helpless. It's a powerful statement about our responsibility towards other living beings, even the smallest and most insignificant.
But then comes the crushing realization, doesn't it? The spider, like everything else in this world, is artificial.
It is, and that realization just shatters Deckard. It's the ultimate betrayal, the final blow to his already fragile faith in authenticity.
He's surrounded by fakes, by imitations, and even his own emotions, his own sense of empathy feels suspect. It's like the whole world is a stage and everyone's playing a role.
And he's caught in the middle, unable to distinguish between the performance and reality. It's a terrifying and deeply unsettling experience, and it pushes him to the brink of collapse. He even starts to identify with Wilbur Mercer, feeling the weight of the world's suffering on his own shoulders.
So what happens next? Does he give up completely? Does he lose himself in this despair?
No, he doesn't. He's broken, lost. But something keeps him going. Perhaps it's that tiny ember of hope, that flicker of humanity that refuses to be extinguished. He drives aimlessly, seeking solace, seeking answers, and eventually ends up in this desolate area near the Oregon border.
It's a powerful image, isn't it? This man who spent his life hunting androids, chasing after some semblance of order in a chaotic world, is now lost in a vast, empty landscape.
It's a reflection of his inner state. Lost, confused, searching for meaning in a world that feels increasingly meaningless. And it's here in this desolate wasteland that he has this profound, almost mystical experience.
He feels the rocks being thrown at him. Just like Mercer feels the stones while climbing the hill of suffering, he experiences this shared pain, this collective burden of humanity's flaws and imperfections.
Exactly. It's a moment of transcendence, a merging of identities. Deckard, the bounty hunter, the man who's been trying to define what it means to be human, becomes one with Mercer, the embodiment of empathy and suffering.
It's like he's finally found his place in the world, even if it's a place of pain and sorrow.
It is, and it's this realization, this acceptance of his own flawed humanity that ultimately brings him back from the brink. He calls his wife Iran and tells her about the toad.
The toad, the one that turned out to be electric.
Yes, the electric toad. Even though it's a symbol of the pervasive artificiality of this world, it represents something else to Deckard. It represents his own journey, his own struggle to find meaning in a world that's lost its way.
And what does Iran do? How does she react to this strange, symbolic gift?
She accepts it. Without judgment, without mockery, she accepts the electric toad as a part of their shared reality.
And that acceptance, that simple act of kindness, is what brings Deckard back from the abyss, isn't it?
It is. It's a moment of grace, of connection that reminds him that even in a world filled with fakes and illusions, there's still the possibility for genuine human connection, for love, for empathy.
So the book ends not with a grand revelation, but with this quiet, almost understated acceptance. Deckard, exhausted, but somehow at peace, goes to bed, leaving us to ponder the implications of his journey.
It's an ending that leaves you with more questions than answers, which I think is the mark of a truly great book. It forces you to think, to engage with the material on a deeper level, and to draw your own conclusions.
Okay, this has been incredibly thought-provoking. I feel like we've only scratched the surface of this complex and multi-layered book.
We have. But I think we've touched on some of the key themes. Empathy, what defines humanity, the impact of technology, and the search for meaning in a world that often feels meaningless.
And we've seen how Deckard, through his harrowing experiences, ultimately arrives at a place of acceptance, of understanding even amidst the ruins of a world that's lost its way.
Exactly. He doesn't find easy answers, but he finds something perhaps even more valuable, a deeper understanding of himself and the world he inhabits.
We'll pause here for now and return in part 3 with a final provocative thought from expert speaker, to leave you pondering the implications of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep and its relevance to our own lives today. We've journeyed with Deckard through this bleak and thought-provoking landscape. What stands out to you as the most significant takeaway for our listeners?
You know, for me, it's the electric toad at the end. That Iran accepts it, doesn't try to fix it. It says so much about how we choose to see the world.
It's like she's acknowledging the artificiality, but embracing it as part of their life, their reality. It's a powerful statement, isn't it?
It is. It suggests that maybe the distinction between real and fake isn't as clear-cut as we'd like to believe. Perhaps what matters more is how we choose to value and connect with things, even those we know to be artificial.
And isn't that the question that haunts this entire book? What is real? What is human? And can we truly know the difference?
That's the genius of Dick's work. He doesn't offer easy answers. He throws these questions out there, lets them reverberate, and forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that the lines are blurred, that the answers might not be as simple as we'd like them to be.
And that ambiguity is so relevant today, isn't it? Think about how technology is blurring the lines between the real and virtual, the human and the artificial.
It is. Do androids dream of electric sheep? Feels almost prophetic in how it anticipates these issues. It's a book that forces us to confront not only the technological advancements we're making, but also the ethical implications of those advancements.
It challenges us to ask, what does it mean to be human in an age where technology is becoming increasingly sophisticated, increasingly capable of mimicking our own thoughts, emotions, even our very consciousness?
And where does empathy fit into all of this? If a machine can convincingly simulate empathy, does that diminish its value? Or does it suggest that empathy itself is something more fundamental, something that transcends the boundaries of flesh and blood?
Those are big questions, ones that I think will continue to be debated for years to come. But Dick's book gives us a framework for thinking about these issues, for grappling with the complexities of a world where the boundaries are constantly shifting.
Exactly. And for me, that's what makes Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep so much more than just a science fiction novel. It's a philosophical exploration of what it means to be human in a world that's constantly challenging our definitions of humanity.
And it reminds us that even in the face of despair, even in a world that feels increasingly artificial, there's still the possibility for connection, for compassion, for empathy.
And perhaps that's the most important lesson of all.
Wow, this deep dive has been an incredible journey. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep and its enduring power.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
And to all our listeners, if you haven't already read this book, I highly recommend adding it to your list. It's a challenging but rewarding read that will stay with you long after you finish the last page.
And it might even inspire you to dream a little differently.
Until next time on Books and Bytes, happy reading.